Hey, greetings everybody. Lance Bell here, Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer for ServingIntel. ServingIntel is a software and a technology company that specializes in healthcare, specifically senior living industry, although we do have some hospitals around the country. We really like to focus on resident care. And today we were going to have a conversation about how AI as a tool can be utilized to empower senior living leaders. In this interaction, as people are going to start funneling in, if you have any questions, just go ahead and type out the question into the chat. My director of marketing here, Arnell, will be reading those off and helping me guide through this process. And we're just going to have a short conversation. It might go 20, 25 minutes. This has become a weekly webinar series. We'll have a different topic for AI, technology, and senior living each week. And we're going to kind of vary it up because there's a whole lot of different ways that AI interacts with senior living. It's a very, what's referred to as multimodal. And it also changes like literally every week. It is a nonstop. So my desire is to serve the industry by taking this a massive amount of information that comes out every week and condensing it into a 20, 25 minute executive summary that helps people get more out of all of this technology. So let's go ahead and jump in as we get into this. What are some of the challenges that we're seeing right now in the senior living world? Where, of course, rising costs, and there's costs that are rising across the board, and it's for different reasons. For example, beef prices have gone through the roof the last 2 weeks. And so as I'm going through Sam's Club, seeing the giant increases in beef prices, I'm asking myself the question, why have the prices gone up? I haven't heard anything in the news. And so I grab my phone, I grab Chat GPT, the advanced voice option, because I like to have conversations with artificial intelligence, and I ask the question. And what had happened is there was a severe drought in the plains states where most of the cattle is being raised. So there was less feed, and the head count on the cattle is the lowest it's been in decades. And so we have low supply of beef, high demand, and hence the price going up. Now, somebody without asking the question could have assumed inflation. You can guess at a number of different things, but that's the power of artificial intelligence to provide amazing search results that go beyond the question and the answer. It gets into the context or the depth of it. Staffing shortages, that's been going on for 5 years now, but depending on the market, still is a concern for the vast majority of operators. Resident expectations. See, it's interesting as the industry expands, and by expanding, I'm talking about going after the all the way down to 55 age. Arnell, I'm in that group now. I just turned 56. I just realized I said an epiphany. I'm in that group now. I could be marketed too. It's expanding, obviously the expectations of residents are higher. And having residents order food or reservations for events using artificial intelligence on their personal device is a today thing. That solution is available today. I'd mentioned earlier that artificial intelligence is multimodal. It's interesting. That is both on the input and that is also on, I guess I should do it this way, it's on the output. And so when I'm talking about the input or the engagement phase of this, a senior living resident today can use a personal device with a avatar, a smiling face that is having an audio conversation. And so the resident is speaking to their phone or their tablet, any internet device. This is a web application. And the AI solution is speaking back to them. So that is the higher quality that we're talking about, more interactive. That same thing can be done by text. That same thing can be done by, when I say text, I'm talking chat. It can also be done by SMX text, simple message. I'm not even sure what the second S is. SMS text messaging. Telephone calls. Today, AI answers the phone. Today, AI initiates phone calls. So if you'd rather go super old school and you've got a landline, a POTS, plain old telephone line service, you absolutely can use that for the resident to engage in the AI. I'm not sure of any others because this really ties back to the census. I think that's all the major ways a resident can interact. And it's the same with the operator. Senior living operator can interact any of these different ways. So that is the input is the engagement piece, the output is the quality piece of this. And so expectations are higher and residents are expecting more. Finally, leadership. We've had data for a long time. In fact, we've been in a data economy for the last 20 years. So I can overwhelm any of our customers with data, but this is where AI comes in. AI learns the persona of the person it's working with. And typically, what we're talking about is the CEO, anybody in the C suite, anybody at the VP level, all the way down to regional ops. And of course, this information is huge for the community level operating, the executive director, director of dining, director of resident services. And so all of these individuals interact with the data using AI, but the AI's job is to, one, know who the person is, have preferences and profiles, and be building, this is referred to as short-term memory, building a profile. So when that dining director comes back to the solution, the AI is going to know we're going to get a lot of food questions. And we're going to be tapping the database to find out how many residents did we serve yesterday? How many did we serve at breakfast yesterday? Did Mrs. Ethel Smith eat it all yesterday? That could be a food or it could be a health services question. So the type of questions you get asked, the AI needs to know who the person is that it's serving. And finally, the last part of this, where we're headed into, is truly business intelligence. If an individual has a concern about a resident, the AI needs to know the concern, needs to be analyzing the data, and then coming back to that person. Push notifications, SMS text messages, and alerting that operations person that this event has happened or this event has not happened. And then we go deeper, another level deeper into business analysis. If you have a community with multiple revenue centers, most of our communities have one or more dining rooms. Most of our communities have a salon. They've got a concierge desk. Some of them have retail outlets, 24-hour C stores or grab and goes where there's a kiosk. The purpose of AI is to analyze this data as it's collected every single day and provide actionable intelligence to the operators. And so if somebody's stealing something, if food waste is too high, you can dream about this all day long. Whatever the business opportunity is that impacts net operating income, the solution's there to analyze it and make sure that that ED, his or her team, they're getting what they need in order to make things happen. So these are the challenges and these are the ways that it's coming alongside in order to have an impact in the communities. So, in a way, the pressures we kind of, and I'm really classic at doing this as a speaker. I can tend to jump ahead into the next slide and interweave as I'm going through these things. But in a way, I just answered each one of these 3 points on the last slide. How costs are rising, why expectations are higher, and then why leadership is being overwhelmed by the data. So how this turns into clarity. And so organizing the information, this is a big part of it. And so, we're blessed a long time ago that we decided to become a Microsoft shop, and we've stayed to that philosophy to this day, that strategy. All of our data sits in a Microsoft Azure data warehouse, which is just a fancy name for a giant SQL database. And we have the ability to help the operators get what they need in the format that they want it. This is a critical part. Again, when we talk about multimodal, that's more than just ways to input. The output could be graphs, visual representations. The output can be spreadsheets. There's lots of people who love spreadsheets. And in fact, we can do a raw data dump to a spreadsheet, and then you can use AI to create macros that clean all that up, which then back into graphics inside of the spreadsheet that help visualize all of the information. So the job of AI is to organize all of this, to interpret all of this information. And it's also part of, there's lots of concepts out there. Microsoft has a solution called Fabric. Fabric is a data collection solution for what Microsoft calls data lake. And basically, if you can imagine a lake where you've got a whole bunch of data sources that are all collected and brought in, when you do that, we have the ability to analyze your data across far more than just the data that ServingIntel collects. Any source that you have, and this even ties into simple things like if you've got a spreadsheet that your team currently uses today for tracking key performance indicators or basically anything, if the AI has access to that spreadsheet, it becomes a part of the data lake. And that gives a richer, deeper context to the AI in order to provide richer and deeper solutions back to the operators. And so lots of ways that AI comes alongside of that. And also the predictive part of this, that's where this is really about. AI is being used today in slips and falls and the tracking of, I've seen continent supplies, tracking UTIs. Basically, what AI is able to do is analyze behaviors and then come forward with a hypothesis that something is about to happen to this resident that will increase the cost of care for that resident, which then will, of course, impact the net operating income for that community. And so when you're able to put this, and this really from our passion, our perspective, we love this from a food perspective. There are foods that allergens, easiest one to go right after. There are food that will cause not death from an allergen standpoint, but things like irritable bowel syndrome. There are residents that could have an allergy to gluten and not realize it because they've never actually been tested. So there's all these different ways that we can look at the actual food that's being consumed, then look at the care output, and then make correlations between those two things. When you start doing that at scale across populations, one or more senior living communities, then you get into predictive analysis. And that's a really exciting opportunity. We want our chefs that are working in these communities, we want them to be able to serve the highest quality food using the highest quality ingredients. And we want them to do such a way that we have the highest satisfaction, because dining is an experience, without there being the repercussions of bad allergens after the fact. So the predictive analysis is huge. And of course, what is this about the end of the day? What happens when we empower senior living executives to take advantage of these tools? Occupancy rates go up. I mean, that's the first thing. When residents have a community that they know the community loves them, they love the community. They're healthier. They live longer. They stay longer. Occupancy, we've got a lot of communities that are in the 99 to 99.5 range. They'll just have the occasional apartment that's empty. And that's our goal for our senior living partners, is to get to that level. Satisfaction is high, occupancy is high, and we all know in this business, when you got high occupancy and high resident satisfaction, you have a maximum net operating income. Then you get into the really cool part of operating a senior living operation. It's looking at the operation. How else can I capture lost revenue? Not necessarily how can I get more out of my residents, but how can I stop losing the revenue we should be getting? That's a huge drumbeat for folks. And this is real simple. If you have a senior living community, and anywhere in your senior living community, an employee has pen and paper and they're writing, that is not a business system. That is a business failure. Our job in serving the senior living industry is to track interactions. Whether there's a price involved or not a price involved does not matter. That's why we work in salons and in home health care. Home health care, different thing, housekeeping, repair and maintenance. We work in all of the different facets, logistics, transportation, events, reservations. Wherever there's an interaction, we track all those interactions. And that should be the goal of every senior living operator, to eliminate paper and pen. That is not a way to run an operation. So where does this go? Your crystal ball, if you will. If you look across the continuum, first thing we do is we serve your staff. Your staff, we got a mix in senior living, but there still is a lot of younger adults. They're picking up AI at a much higher adoption rate than other technologies. I've been studying statistics here lately, and it's believed between 15 and 20% of adults are using artificial intelligence on a daily basis. So let's just say it's 1 out of 5 that's doing it, but we're seeing numbers that 1 out of 2 individuals who are 20 to 30 years of age are using AI every single day. And so it's not about using AI because AI's done a few things. AI has changed the search world. Our federal government here in the United States was about to break up Google. I mean, very close to breaking up Google. And what the final judgment ended up being is that they're not going to get broken up because AI has disrupted Google's search business. And I intentionally stopped using Google for search a long time ago. There are many solutions out there. You can literally use ChatGPT, but there's a solution that I use called Perplexity. That's perplexity.ai. Arnell, if you type that into the chat window, I would appreciate that. Perplexity is an amazing AI solution that's focused on search. And I love the citations, I love the pictures, I love the way they do the presentation. So today, whether that's on my desktop computer, whether that's on my cell phone, I use Perplexity, the free version of Perplexity, mind you, to do all of my searches going forward. So search has been revolutionized. That's one of the ways that anybody, but specifically younger adults, are using the solution today. So for staffing, labor, predicting when will staff be needed. We're talking about now labor scheduling. Um, Productivity increases are significant when using artificial intelligence. So again, the directors at a senior living community, including the executive director, all of them should be using artificial intelligence to do everything. I use it to write emails. I use it to start and generate reports. And there's a process to all of this that we'll go through as we get toward the tail end of this. Forecasting, one of the most exciting things that we created for senior living was the ability to forecast number of portions of a food product that should be created or should be produced. And so as we were working with chefs, and we're talking about rotating schedules of menu items, and that happens at most of our communities. They're on a cycle, a 4-week cycle, all the way up to a 13, 15-week cycle. And so every third week at Tuesday night at dinner time is going to be meatloaf and chicken marsala. So if I'm only running it 1 or 2 times per cycle, I have to remember how many did we sell last time? And what human beings do is we guess. And oftentimes we guess wrong. And when a chef guesses wrong, they end up with food waste or they end up running out way too fast and lowering resident satisfaction. So we created an algorithm that works through our AI solution that the chef on their personal device says forecast meatloaf for dinner tonight. And then the AI goes into the hit sales tables and looks at every time we've sold meatloaf all the way back to the first day of the solution being in the community and comes back. It looks at day of the week, it looks at serving period, it looks at weather, and then it does a trend analysis. And this also ties to occupancy. Has occupancy been going up for this community, or has it been going down or staying flat? And it takes all of that into consideration, and then says, chef, you need to create 58 portions of meatloaf for tonight. And then what happens after the day is over is the AI looks. So how many did we sell? Our target range is 5% above and beyond that 58. So we're talking about 3 meals, give or take 3 portions. That's the sweet spot. And every time the chef runs this algorithm, the system with more data gets smarter and smarter and smarter. That's how it all works. So we make it super easy, saving time and saving money in this particular example. That process can be done with anything through the entire community. And so forecasting popular menu items, reducing waste, these are just some of the benefits from a dining standpoint. And then resident trends. I think the neatest thing is getting into customer surveys. This is where we're at today. And so we have the ability, we don't want to speak to the resident through the AI and say, rate your breakfast this morning from 1 star to 5 stars. That's very sterile. It's not a very intuitive way of engaging a resident. And so, what our solution has the ability to do today is when residents are using the solution, just at what's the weather today? What events are on the calendar today? It doesn't matter what the interaction is. The solution is able to ask the resident on a percentage basis. This part's very important. Hey, I saw that you had 2 eggs and bacon this morning for breakfast. Were the eggs cooked the way that you like them? Over medium? Was the bacon cooked crispy the way that you like it? We see that Susie was your server. Did she take good care of you? We're able to ask very specific laser beam questions and take these answers. The resident could go on for 10 minutes about how the eggs are good, but they could have been better if this is done and this is done and this is done. We take that information and we do an analysis, a sentiment analysis is what this is called, and we back it into a rating between 1 and 4. So we collect the comments. We flag the comments that are important or should be important to the staff. For example, the eggs were cooked the way I like it, but there was a long black hair in my eggs. The AI, did you share that with Susie, your server? No, I just pulled the hair out and set it aside. Now, the resident, quote, handled her situation, but is that satisfactory for the staff? Maybe somebody back on the line's not wearing a hairnet. So whatever the situation is, the solution snags that critical piece of data, that feedback, and then delivers it to the dining director and the executive director so they can swing back around, love on the resident, and improve the situation. That's what happens so often in senior living operations. It's the same fail. It happens over and over again. It becomes a part of the community, and we don't want to see any community fail that way. So this is in tracking engagement patterns so that you're able to be proactive. That's what's so important about all of this. So actionable data, dashboards, very easy to create today. It's for a long time, old school is KPIs, key performance indicators. I think people really want to see, instead of numbers on a spreadsheet, people really want to see graphs. And so the solution has the ability to generate these based on the format, the color scheme, everything you like, and provide those to you, even on a daily basis. So imagine an executive director waking up, he or she is going into their kitchen at their home to get coffee, and they're like, give me my KPIs for yesterday. And up pop, one at a time, these beautiful graphs being created through visual AI of the things the AI know is important. And so we could be educating the team on how the operation is performing right as they're drinking their first cup of coffee for the day. Real-time engagement, this would be using push notifications to alert the management team, the executive team on the fly that something is happening right now. If there's a slip and a fall during a conversation with AI and the AI hears the resident scream, fall, picks up all these cues, the AI can reach out with a text notification or now even call the executive director on his or her cell phone and have a conversation with them over their phone. This resident fell, we believe, or we know she's in this area, and we could have health folks engaging staff right on the fly. And then the biggest thing is getting out of the world of guessing. Everybody knows what assume means as a word broken down into 3 parts. We want to help teams make decisions based on evidence, on reality. I like to say the number one job of a leader is the leader's ability to define reality. And so what the AI does is it helps leaders define reality in order to get the most amazing output that you can get. As shared, these reports are any cadence. They tie into accounting, depends on your accounting system, on what level of granularity you want there. Our company, we made a decision a couple of years ago. We moved over to Microsoft's accounting. It's called Business Central, so that I'm able to use artificial intelligence to ask our accounting database questions. I can ask about accounts receivable, accounts payable, who's the best customer? Who buys the most stuff from us? Who calls our service desk the most? We as an organization use these tools the same way a senior living community can use these tools in order to get awareness onto where are the landmines, what can I do to provide a better experience for our customers. That's how we at Serving Intel, that's how we live. Is how can we improve the lives of our customers every single day. So this is kind of cool when you take the sterile world of data and you enhance it with artificial intelligence and you move it over into the world of compassion. We want to have directors spending less time doing busy work and spending more time with the residents. And so as these resources get allocated and we have the opportunity to reduce costs, increase NOI, this ties into compliance, this ties into safety. Of course, timeliness, another passion of ours, is hot food being served hot and cold food being served cold. And I guarantee you, any senior living community that's doing paper and pen does not have that today. You have long wait times and you got mediocrity food quality coming and going, and your residents deserve better. So we want to help the industry as far as managing expectations. That's how we live, setting and managing expectations and getting more out of this. So where's it going? It's in a wrap up mode right now. The ability to integrate these systems. I talked about data lake today and how the data can be analyzed across, we refer to as silos. We break down data silos and we can help bring in all of the data for a community into one place where the AI has the most information to in context in order to provide the best outcome. That's what this is about. We're excited to see more and more residents engage with AI, to see them using the solutions, because the more we have residents that are using artificial intelligence, the better the system becomes. It's essentially self-learning. And the more data in, the better data out. And finally, this we live in a world of data. I said that this isn't new. This has been going on for a couple of decades now. Data, intellectual property, these are key assets for a senior living community. I mean, it creates training programs. It creates business cases. It creates project plans. And it just doesn't do it at the strategic or at the vision level. It does it all the way down to the distribution of the task to the person with deadlines for accountability back. And so these systems help people work together as teams in order to get the best output for the residents. And so that is the end of the interaction. Arnell, you have any thoughts on today's subject matter?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everything that was said is correct, and it's relevant nowadays to senior living, especially that we have to adapt faster and quicker. Because if not, then of course the senior living people will be the one who suffer. It has been there are quite not a lot of senior living communities now adapting to this, but we are starting to revolutionize and empower all senior living to have and adapt these quick changes, right, Lance?
Absolutely. So why don't we next week, why don't we get into some examples of how senior living executives can utilize this technology? Let's go through some processes. I shared my five-step process for engaging with artificial intelligence. Let's look at doing something that really gets into the meat of this so that senior living operators can begin using this today. The things that we're sharing aren't exclusive to Serving Intel. Some of the solutions that we recommend is, of course, ChatGPT. We recommend Claude AI. I've shared Perplexity. So there are a number of different solutions out there, and all of these solutions have a free version. So you don't have to pay money. There are times when we recommend that you do get a subscription, but that's not a requirement. And so we'll dig into that next week. That's the end of today's webinar. I hope you got a lot out of it and pray y'all make it a great day. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, guys.